Claire Bennett stepped off the transport vessel onto the crystalline surface of Zythos and felt her breath catch in her throat, because the planet glowed with an otherworldly blue luminescence that made everything look like a frozen dream. Alien guards towered over her at nearly 8 feet tall, with their silver skin reflecting the strange light like living mirrors, and their eyes held no warmth, only cold assessment of the small human diplomat who dared to walk among them. She adjusted her diplomatic sash and straightened her shoulders, because showing fear now would doom the negotiations before they even began. And Earth needed this alliance desperately after 3 years of tense standoffs at the border systems. The Grand Hall stretched before her like a cathedral made of ice and metal, where hundreds of alien officials gathered in perfect silence, watching her every movement with predatory focus. Then she saw Zira standing on the raised platform at the center of the chamber, and Claire forgot how to breathe properly, because the alien commander was magnificent in a terrifying, beautiful way that made her feel small and insignificant. Zira stood 7 feet tall, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, and her golden eyes locked onto Claire with an intensity that felt like being caught in a star's gravity well. The commander wore armor that looked like it had been forged from starlight itself, and weapons hung at her sides that could probably vaporize Claire before she could even scream. Claire walked forward on trembling legs while her mind raced with all the briefings and warnings about the Zythosian Empire and their habit of crushing species that showed weakness. Zira descended from the platform with movements that were too graceful for someone so large and powerful, and she stopped just inches from Claire invading her personal space in a way that felt deliberate and testing. The alien commander studied her face for a long moment before speaking in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder carrying across mountains. "Your species requested negotiations, and I accepted on the condition that you specifically would represent humanity. And now you stand before me." Claire forced herself to meet those golden eyes, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away from a predator's direct gaze. "I am honored that you requested me, though I cannot imagine why an empire that has conquered 47 worlds would care which human spoke for Earth." Zira's expression shifted slightly into something that might have been amusement if aliens felt such things. "I have studied your world for 3 years and watched recordings of your speeches and debates, and you possess something rare among your kind." Claire felt her heart hammering against her ribs, because this was not how diplomatic first contacts were supposed to proceed, according to any protocol. What could I possibly possess that your empire, with all its power and technology, would find valuable or interesting? Zira leaned closer until Claire could see flecks of amber in those golden eyes and smell something like ozone in distant storms. "You believe that strength comes from connection rather than domination, and you defend the weak even when it costs you personally. And this fascinates me." The negotiations began in a formal chamber where holographic displays showed star maps and trade routes, while alien officials presented their demands in clinical detached voices. Earth would surrender its outer colonies and accept Zythosian oversight of its military development and provide resources for the Empire's continued expansion. Claire listened to each demand, while her mind worked through possible counters and compromises, because giving in completely would make humanity little more than slaves. She stood and presented Earth's position with steady voice, explaining that cooperation required mutual benefit, not subjugation disguised as protection. The alien officials responded with cold logic, stating that humanity's emotional attachments to concepts like freedom and dignity were inefficient weaknesses. Claire argued back that emotions gave humans strength to endure hardships that would break purely logical beings, because hope and love made suffering bearable. Zira watched the entire exchange without speaking, but Claire felt those golden eyes tracking her every gesture and expression like she was a puzzle to be solved. After 6 hours of circular arguments, the session ended, and Claire returned to her assigned quarters exhausted and worried that the negotiations were already failing. She was studying star charts when her door chimed and opened to reveal Zira standing alone without guards or weapons, looking almost vulnerable in the dim light. The commander entered without invitation and studied Claire's quarters with apparent interest, noting the photographs of Earth and the small plant she had brought from home. "You keep images of people who are not present and cultivate a living thing that serves no practical purpose. And this confirms what I suspected about your kind." Claire set down her data pad and faced the towering alien woman with confusion, because private visits between negotiators violated every diplomatic protocol she knew. What did you suspect about humanity that required you to study us for 3 years and request me specifically for these talks? Zira moved to the window that showed Zethos's 3 moons hanging in the purple sky like pearls on velvet, and her reflection looked almost sad. My people remove our capacity for emotional attachment when we are young, because feelings interfere with efficient decision-making and unity of purpose. We are raised to serve the empire without question or doubt, and to view conquest as the natural order of a superior civilization. But I accessed forbidden archives containing observations of species we destroyed, and I saw that they fought harder for each other than we ever fought for empire. Humans defend their families and homes with ferocity that defies logic, and you create art and music for no reason, except that it makes you feel something. I began to wonder if my people had sacrificed the very thing that makes existence meaningful, in exchange for power that brings no satisfaction. Claire felt something shift in her chest, because this mighty warrior who commanded fleets and conquered worlds was confessing a loneliness so profound it hurt. You envy us even though we are weaker and smaller, and our empire consists of just one system compared to your dozens. Zira turned from the window, and those golden eyes held something raw and hungry that made Claire's pulse quicken with emotions she could not name. I envy that you can love and grieve and hope and dream, while I feel nothing, except the hollow satisfaction of completed objectives and tactical victories. The days that followed were tense because other alien officials grew impatient with Claire's refusal to simply surrender to their terms, and threats began replacing arguments. During one heated session, a council member suggested that humanity's defiance proved they were too dangerous to leave independent and should be eliminated entirely. Claire stood her ground and argued that destroying Earth would waste resources and prove the Empire feared ideas more than actual military threats. Zira finally spoke, and her voice cut through the chamber like a blade, making every official fall silent and attentive. The human makes valid points, and her species has survived ice ages and plagues and wars without losing their unity, and this demonstrates resilience worth. Studying Claire felt grateful for the support, but noticed angry glances from other officials who seemed to resent Zira's defense of the inferior human. That night, Claire could not sleep because she kept replaying Zira's words and wondering what the commander really wanted from these negotiations. She was pacing her quarters when explosions rocked the building and alarms began shrieking warnings that made her blood run cold with sudden terror. Her door burst open, and Zira rushed in, grabbing Claire and pulling her close while energy weapons fire lit up the corridor outside Rebel faction, trying to kill you to prevent peace talks and prove humans are too weak to protect, and we need to move now. They ran through smoke-filled hallways, while Zira fired her weapon at attackers who seemed to come from everywhere at once in coordinated assault. Claire stumbled and nearly fell, but Zira caught her with one arm and lifted her completely off the ground while still firing with her other, and a blast of energy came from behind them, and Zira spun, putting her own body between Claire and the weapon that struck her armor with devastating force. The commander grunted in pain but kept moving until they reached a secure room where she sealed the door and finally set Claire down gently. Claire saw the burn across Zira's side where armor had been melted away, and silver skin was charred and bleeding something that glowed faintly blue. You are hurt badly and need medical attention. Immediately so. Let me call for help before you lose more blood. Zira slid down the wall to sit on the floor, and her breathing was labored, but she managed a smile that looked almost human in its warmth. I will survive because my people are difficult to kill, but I thank you for your concern, even though it is illogical to worry about your captor. Claire knelt beside her and carefully examined the wound, while her hands trembled with adrenaline and fear, and something deeper she did not want to name. You are not my captor, and you just saved my life, so please let me help you, because leaving you to suffer would make me no better than those who attacked us. Zira watched Claire tend her wound with medical supplies from the emergency kit, and something shifted in those golden eyes into wonder and confusion. No one has touched me with gentleness since I was very young, before the surgery that removed my capacity to feel. And it is strange but not unpal.